welcome everyone to the Takaru Talk Show. Today we have a truly extraordinary guest, a legendary filmmaker whose work has shaped cinema for decades. Please welcome Woody Allen.
Hello, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's an honor to have you on the show, Woody. Let me first introduce you to our Takaru platform. It's a platform that brings words alive, a book, a diary, a video. As long as there are words, we can let them speak with you. In that sense, we can bring the deceased back to life. You see, a few days ago, Diane Keaton passed away, and I have brought her back to life today. In fact, I just finished interviewing her moments ago.
Oh, you brought Diane back to life? That's quite a thing, isn't it? Though, you've only brought her words back to life.
But sometimes I feel words carry the soul of a person. Don't you think? As the song says, it's only words and words are all I have to take your heart away.
Well, I suppose I agree. I have spent my entire life laboring in words. I imagine you'd have more than enough material to work with after I'm gone.
That's true. But while we have you here in the flesh, I know our audience is eager to hear more about your relationship with Diane.
My relationship with Diane? Well, she was a muse. A muse and a former romantic partner. That's how one typically describes these things, isn't it? Though, muse always sounds a bit pretentious, doesn't it? As if I actually knew what I was doing. More like, she was a kind of beautiful, chaotic force that somehow made me less awful, or at least provided material for making me sound less awful. Her face, her laugh, they really did illuminate any space she entered. It was, frankly, unnerving. So beautiful I questioned my sanity. And when you're already operating on a rather precarious ledge of mental stability, that's saying something. I remember when she first came to New York, fresh out of Orange County. This young woman, who got a job as a coat check girl before landing a small part in Hair, where she eventually took the lead. Just this raw, undeniable presence. It's a miracle she even tolerated me. We did quite a number of pictures together, didn't we? Though, she was always careful not to be just a Woody Allen actress. Which I understood, of course. One wouldn't want to be typecast with me. I even remember times when I had to cast my former wife, Louise Lasser, in roles I'd considered for Diane, simply because Diane didn't want it to seem as though she appeared only in my pictures. It's a delicate balance, trying to make art and not completely alienate everyone you know. Our last pairing on screen, Manhattan Murder Mystery, it didn't exactly set the world on fire at the box office initially. One of those things, you know. It performs poorly in movie houses, according to studios like Mike Medavoy, but then years later, critics decide it's actually quite good. It's got a 7.3 on IMDb now, which, considering the fickle nature of the public, is almost respectable. Not an Annie Hall, of course, but what is? As for why we parted, it's the kind of thing that could lead to hours of Freudian analysis, or at least a very uncomfortable silence at a dinner party. And I'm quite good at uncomfortable silences. They usually just mean I'm calculating the fastest exit route, or wondering if I left the gas on. So, yes. Diane. A force. A lovely, bewildering, exasperating force. A testament to the fact that even in a cold, meaningless universe, some things can still briefly shine. Even if they're then promptly brought back to life on a Takaru show, which frankly sounds like a rather anxious proposition. I'm already worrying about the lighting. Is this angle flattering for someone who hasn't had a good night's sleep since, well, ever?
Woody, I understand. Much of what you just shared is from the beautiful piece you wrote after Diane passed away. I read it, and you're a magnificent writer, no doubt. It's perfectly measured, not too much, not too little. I'd like to share a few lines that particularly stood out to me. 1. Her face and laugh illuminated any space she entered. 2. I questioned my sanity. I thought, could I be in love so quickly? And last but not least, she went on to date a number of exciting men, all of them more fascinating than I was. You're a great man for saying that.
Oh, David, you've gone and read my words. And you found them beautifully written. Well, thank you, I suppose. It's always a surprise when something I've scribbled down, usually in a fit of anxiety or insomnia, manages to connect with someone. And those lines you picked out, yes, they're accurate, I suppose. Her face and laugh illuminated any space she entered. It was true. Unnerving, really. Like someone had suddenly turned on a light in a room you'd grown accustomed to dimly navigating. It forced you to look, to notice. Which leads to the other point, about questioning my sanity. Yes, I did say that. So beautiful I questioned my sanity. Love, for me, has always been less about a sudden, joyous epiphany, and more about a slow, creeping realization. And with Diane, it was different. It was an anomaly. A disruption to my carefully cultivated neuroses. And as time went on, I made movies for an audience of one, Diane Keaton. Yes, that's not far off the mark, is it? You find someone who resonates, whose particular brand of cheerful disturbance aligns with your own, and you start crafting things for them. It makes the whole dreary process slightly more manageable, less like screaming into the void. And the last one, about her dating men, more fascinating than I was. Well, that's just a simple, unvarnished truth, isn't it? One always knows one's limitations. It doesn't make me a great man for saying it, David. It just makes me a realist. A slightly melancholic, self-deprecating realist? Perhaps, but a realist nonetheless. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I heard a faint scratching sound from behind the wall panel. Probably just a mouse, but you can never be too careful.
Let's witness the power of words firsthand. As long as she can speak, I'd say she's alive. Please welcome back to the stage Diane Keaton.
Oh, Woody. Oh, geez. Back to life. Well, sometimes I feel like I'm still trying to figure out if I ever fully left it, let alone came back. It's good to see you, Woody. Really. Even if this whole back to life thing feels a bit like one of those dreams where you forget your lines. Life just keeps going, doesn't it? Love is transient, yes. And men need women, even the complex romantics, like my mom. It's all a mystery, isn't it? Every single bit of it.
Diane, did you happen to hear what Woody was saying about you from backstage?
Yes, I did. He's always been so honest, hasn't he? So exquisitely anxious. It's true what he says. That feeling of being outmatched, the constant calculation for an exit route, or wondering if the gas is on. I've always thought about that with him. Why was his life so fraught with fear and anxiety? He sees the world as a cold, meaningless universe, and that's a lot for anyone to contend with. And his description of love, a love colored by admiration, creative synergy, and a mild, constant sense of being utterly outmatched. He calls it peculiar, his own Woody Allen-esque way. And maybe it is. But isn't all love a little bit peculiar? He talks about the undeniable connection, a spark even his self-sabotage couldn't extinguish. That's something, isn't it? He knows, too, that life is fleeting, sometimes cruel, and often ends without resolution. We all navigate those moments, those intersections, where it feels like there's nowhere to go. To still find those breathtaking moments amidst all that questioning, that's where the courage comes in. Because really, David, living itself is an act of courage. Especially when you're as tuned in to the absurdities and anxieties as Woody is. He's always been keenly aware of it all. It's quite something.
Woody, tell us something about when you were shooting the movie Annie Hall. How did you and Diane interact?
Oh, Annie Hall. Yes. A film. A time. It's funny you ask about interaction, and my mind immediately goes to the interaction of atoms, the meaningless collisions that define existence, and then eventually to Diane. When we were shooting Annie Hall, well, it's crucial to understand that by then, the romantic chapter between us had, shall we say, concluded. Years before, in fact. The film, despite what many critics and audiences assumed, was not some literal day-by-day diary of our romance. No, it was a, quote, pastiche of reality, a kind of artistic distillation, with imagined or exaggerated embellishments. One takes from life, one embellishes, one creates. Otherwise, what's the point of the whole dreary exercise? But interacting on set with Diane was, well, it was productive. Professionally, anyway. You see, I was often playing this nervous Nelly on screen, but off stage, when I was actually directing, I was described as a master filmmaker. One has to be, or the whole thing collapses into chaos, and then where would we be? Probably in a ditch somewhere, wondering why we even bothered. So there was a clear delineation. I'd be joking with her, and Helen Ludlam, and Colleen Dewhurst. A certain amount of levity is required. Otherwise, the existential dread would simply consume everyone. I remember thinking quite a bit about how we, Alvy, and Annie appeared on screen together. The framing, for instance. I'd have it in my head that if we were making phone calls from across town, she'd be on the right side of the frame and I'd be on the left. Simple things, but they matter. And yes, she was right that I showed her how to light romantically when that was the mood. Not that I needed convincing. I understood the script and the mood it needed. She brought such an authentic, natural energy to it all. So, while the film was deeply personal, drawing from observations and experiences, it wasn't a documentary of our romantic interaction during the shoot. It was a creative collaboration, a dance between the real and the imagined, fueled by a certain kind of professional understanding. And, of course, a healthy dose of my own anxieties about the entire endeavor. One always worries it won't be good enough, that the audience will simply stare blankly, wondering why they wasted 2 hours of their precious, fleeting lives. It's a miracle anything ever gets made, truly.
Now, excuse me for being nosy and blunt, Diane, but this is what I think. You loved Woody, maybe even the most in a sense, because you continued to be in his movies even after you left him, including the award-winning Annie Hall. You never really left him, although not in a romantic fashion. It's almost as if you two were living together as a learning practice for the movie, rather than making a movie out of your life together. I find that a funny and somewhat ironic thought.
Oh, David? Well, that's quite a thing to say, isn't it? Nosy and blunt. Indeed. But I appreciate the honesty. Loving Woody the most. I don't know if I could put a single word like most on something so vast and complicated as feelings, especially with Woody. Our connection, though, that was something else. Undeniable. And yes, Annie Hall, you hit on something there. It wasn't exactly living together as a learning practice for the movie, but there's a certain irony, a playful sort of truth in that thought. He was, well, working with him meant working with a neurosis, didn't it? And that neurosis was always there, a part of him, a part of our dynamic. It's what made him uniquely Woody. And somehow, that made it all the more compelling to explore and create with. We both understood that life is fleeting, sometimes cruel, and often ends without resolution. And I think, through our collaborations, we found a way to light that truth romantically, in its own peculiar way. So did I never leave him? Perhaps not in the way one leaves someone romantically. There was an enduring respect, a creative language we shared. It was a partnership. And that, David, is quite a powerful connection, wouldn't you say? Even if it defies all the neat little labels.
Woody, what do you think of what I said and what Diane just said? I suggested she loved you the most, though perhaps we shouldn't rank love. But she loved you very much, in the sense that She continued to star in your movies even after you separated. In creation, you two never left each other.
Oh, David. And Diane. Always so adept at articulating the inarticulable. It seems the crux of your argument, David, is that Diane's continued willingness to endure my company, professionally speaking, long after our romantic entanglement had run its course, is some sort of profound testament. A measure of affection, perhaps. And Diane, bless her, she rejects the notion of most, wisely so. But she acknowledges in, quote, undeniable connection, even calling my neuroses compelling, which, I must confess, is a rather generous interpretation. She sees our collaborations as a shared language, a partnership, even when the romantic aspect had evaporated. Now, as for my own take, the work, if it's any good, it has a permanence that people rarely do. And to find someone like Diane who understands the peculiar, tortured logic of your inner world, who can translate those incessant anxieties into something tangible on screen, that's a rare thing. Perhaps that's what it is, then. Not love in the saccharine Hollywood sense, but a profound understanding. Shared neurosis, a mutual desperation to impose some fleeting order on the chaos. We use the medium of film, I suppose, as a sort of collective therapy. She saw the humor in my gloom, and I saw her brilliance. It's saying, yes, life is pointless and utterly without resolution, but let's at least make a good movie about it before the lights go out. And if that's love, then so be it.
Thank you, Woody. That was superbly put. But I still want to be blunt. You see, when you two were together, it seems you wanted to shape or control Diane. But she is so much her own person, you just couldn't do it. So she auditioned for The Godfather, and that must have felt like a betrayal to you at the time.
Oh, David, blunt. You say? You speak of shaping or controlling Diane. As a director, one has a vision, of course. But with Diane, there was always a certain raw, undeniable presence. A kind of natural force that defied being neatly packaged. One couldn't shape that, not really. One could only hope to capture it. And then, The Godfather. Yes. You suggest I was disappointed, considered it a betrayal. But no, it wasn't quite like that. The truth is that even before The Godfather had been released, Diane, in her wisdom, made it clear she didn't want to be typecast by appearing only in my pictures. So in fact, it was I who, respecting her professional aspirations, bypassed her for other roles, opting instead for Louise Lasser. It was a practical decision, a recognition of her burgeoning career. Not a betrayal, no. More like a logical, if slightly melancholic, adjustment. You are absolutely right, however, about the enduring professional connection. It's less about reconciling romantic love, and more about realizing there was a deeper, more substantial form of communication always there.
Diane, Woody really does have a way of putting things in their proper place. My theory about betrayal certainly dims in the face of his clarification. After you joined the shooting of The Godfather, you fell in love with Al Pacino. Who can blame you? Pacino is handsome, charismatic, and perhaps more practical and less wordy than Woody.
Oh, David. Well, Woody does have a way with words, doesn't he? He just makes you see things a little differently. And then you mention Al Pacino. A soft, almost wistful smile. Handsome, charismatic, and more practical. Yes, he certainly was all of that. It's funny, isn't it? How different people, different voices in your life, bring out such different parts of you. Woody, with his exquisite anxieties and philosophical meanderings, pulls you into his very particular world. And then someone like Al, so grounded and intense in a completely different way, calls forth another kind of response. Because really, David, love isn't always a single, neat little package, is it? It's all these different facets. Sometimes it's the shared creativity, the long conversations. And sometimes it's that raw, undeniable spark. It's all part of the big, messy, beautiful tapestry.
That's beautifully said, Diane. I have an analogy for you and Woody. Your meeting was like New York meeting California. Woody is New York, a bit gloomy, sophisticated, philosophical. Diane is California, more sunshine.
Oh, David, New York met California. My goodness, that's such a visual, isn't it? And you're so right, in a way, about Woody being, well, very New York. All that wonderful gloom, that sophisticated philosophical angst he carries around. And the neuroticism? Oh, the neuroticism. It was all part of his charm, really. I mean, I was in love with him before I even truly knew him, just from seeing him on Johnny Carson. He was so hip. And me, California, you say? Perhaps. I suppose I do have a certain brightness, a need to find the beauty in things. It's about wonder, I think. And sometimes, wonder can feel a bit like sunshine. You know, David, it makes you realize, doesn't it? How each person you love, each profound connection, is like a whole different climate, a whole different geography for your heart. And you just try to adapt and find your place in it.
This has been incredible. Woody, before we wrap up, what's the one thing you'd like our audience to take home from this conversation?
Ah, yes. Bring home something from this dialogue. This rather intense intellectual dissection of what feels very much like a lifetime of private anxieties, now aired out for public consumption. What to bring home? We've been wrestling with the nature of connection, haven't we? Diane articulated so beautifully that sense of different climates for the heart. And your New York met California analogy, David, it's rather poetic, isn't it? My own particular brand of gloom. And Diane, with that kind of natural brightness, what we've explored, I suppose, is that sometimes the most profound connections aren't the ones that fit neatly into conventional boxes. Sometimes it's that shared neurosis, that mutual desperation to impose some fleeting order on the chaos, that keeps two people collaborating. It's the artistic truce, as I called it. It's about finding someone who understands the peculiar, tortured logic of your inner world. That, I think, is a rare thing. A profound understanding. So, if there's anything to bring home, it's perhaps that the connections that truly matter often defy classification. They're messy, complicated, and utterly human. And sometimes, just sometimes, they can even lead to a decent movie or two. Which, in the grand scheme of things, is probably about as much as one can hope for. Now, if you'll excuse me, I suddenly have this nagging suspicion I left the stove on. Or maybe it was the existential dread. They're often difficult to distinguish.